What's going on, everybody? It's your man, Louie T, here with another brand new installment of the Louie T Network podcast. This episode is going to be dedicated to the schedule and only the schedule. We'll go through all 32 team schedules, kind of pick out some of the outliers and some of the things that stand out to us amongst those schedules, and really break it down and talk about the things that we are intrigued by with the NFL schedule. It has turned into a spectacle that the NFL continues to flex its muscles and show its dominance. The schedule release, and this is crazy to even say, is more important than the NBA and NHL playoffs that are currently taking place right now. And that's utterly insane. It's the equivalent of an NFL preseason game drawing more viewers than an NBA finals game, but this shit happens all the time. It's just another reminder that no matter what they do, the NFL is king. So we're going to dedicate an entire episode to the NFL schedule that was released yesterday. So buckle up. It's going to be a fun ride. You are locked into the Louie T Network podcast that starts now. The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 504th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Hope this Thursday is treating you exceptionally well. We're getting towards the end of the week. I don't know where you are, but here in the DMV area, the weather has finally cleared up. It's been rainy all week, and it's finally broke. Now the sun's out. It's a little bit sticky and humid today. Hopefully this is not a precursor of things to come this summer, but nonetheless, it's good to see the sun. Haven't seen it in about 3 or 4 days now, it feels like. So all is well in this neck of the woods. Hopefully the same can be said for you and yours out there. And before we get to why we're here today, which is the NFL schedule, I just want a quick aside on the NBA playoffs. I'm shocked and appalled at the behavior of the Cleveland Cavaliers. I cannot believe that they went out meekly into the night the way that they did. Shout out to the Indiana Pacers for doing what they did and finding themselves in the Eastern Conference Finals for the second consecutive year. I would have never guessed that they would have done this again. Tyrese Halliburton is shutting up all of the naysayers, those who called him overrated. There was an NBA poll that was done here recently that basically said that his peers called him the most overrated player in the league. I think he is dispelling that notion currently in these NBA playoffs as they run over the Cleveland Cavaliers 4-1 in that series. I did not think they were going to close out that series on the Cavaliers' home floor. And again, now we're going to start looking at Donovan Mitchell a little bit sideways. And again, there were injuries there that really hampered the Cavaliers, but there's no excuse. That team blew leads in that game, similar to the Celtics, and they showed no grit, no toughness, no heart. And this is what Donovan Mitchell's postseason career has looked like. He's been a regular season dynamo, gets to the postseason and does not get it done. That conversation is going to start, and it's going to get louder and louder as these types of performances happen in the postseason. Add another one to the ledger for Donovan Mitchell in the wrong column. As far as the Knicks are concerned, I'm not concerned if I'm a Knicks fan, but I am at the same time. Pretty impressive performance by Boston. Me and my dad always like to say that when a star player is out, that first game afterwards, the team responds. Everyone understands that they now have to step up, and there's a bigger responsibility amongst the guys that are going to get minutes. And you see that very often in the NBA. When a star player is out, that next game, the team rises to the occasion. I can remember very vividly my Memphis Grizzlies. John Morant was out of that series the next game. I think we were up by 56 on the Golden State Warriors in that game 5 of that series. And so they stepped up. They played out of their gourds, and that happens all the time in the NBA. I think it happens more so in the NBA than any other sport, where you see a star player go down and the rest of the team kind of rally around the fact that we don't have that guy. And the other team too, I think it goes both ways. You see a psychological letdown from the opposition as well. Okay, they don't have Tatum now. We should be able to go in for the kill, except they don't come with that mindset. They just figure they're going to lay down and die because their best player isn't there, while the other team is thinking, we're going to show them that we can get it done without him. And so they've got they raise their level of intensity. Meanwhile, the other team kind of has a letdown because they're expecting the other team to lie down. Kind of saw that. They didn't shoot well, did the Knicks. The Celtics shot exceptionally well, especially Derek White. And Luke Cornett gave them a huge spark off the bench, and they got it done. I'm not surprised because I thought the Cavaliers were going to do the same thing, and I thought both of these series were going to end in 6. Well, the Cavaliers are done in 5, and the Knicks have to go home, and they better close it out in 6 at Madison Square Garden. Now the pressure's squarely on them because the Celtics at this point don't have anything to lose because no one expects them to win this series without Jason Tatum, if you know what I mean. All the pressure's on the Knicks now, having been up 3-1. I expect the Knicks to take care of business in Game 6, but if they don't, SpaghettiOs. So with that said, let's get to a big topic of discussion right now, obviously, with the NFL schedule being released in its entirety yesterday. Let's go ahead and take a look at the schedule and break it down and talk about the schedule in all of its splendor. I did not even pull the schedule up in my haste to get up here. No worries. We can pull it up right now. Right now. You can pull it up right now. I will get rid of that. I probably need to get rid of me as well so you can see the entire schedule. So I guess I could go and move myself towards the top of the screen. I can still be present. Is it me or is it hot in here? God damn. Hold on, let me check and see if this AC is on. I'm gonna be right back. God damn, I'm sweating. All right, I'm back. Yeah, it was on, but damn, it was on 70 degrees, which is what we like to keep it on. You know, my wife, I told you, she thinks it's damn Antarctica in here, so she turns it down into the 60s. That should be on Arctic blast, but it's hot today. And I just came from the gym, so, you know, I got the blood boiling and curling and got a little lather going, so I'm a little warm right now. All right. So let's get to the schedule, man. I'm always fascinated by the schedule and what it brings to the table. And you know, obviously, this is an exercise in futility. Well, not this particular exercise that we're going to go through today, but trying to predict games in May is an exercise in futility. A lot of time between now and the start of the season in September. A lot of things can transpire between now and September. And so this is just an exercise in, we're going off of last year, obviously looking at the record, strength of schedule, but we don't know who's going to be what this year. This time last year, who thought the Minnesota Vikings were going to have the second best record in the NFC? Raise your hand if you thought that was going to be the case. Okay, exactly. So we don't know what the hell's going to happen. So all we can do is look at this, kind of base our perception of the strength of a schedule based off of what teams did a season ago. Like some teams, you know, they're going to be good. As long as they stay relatively healthy, as long as their quarterback is healthy, they're going to be in the mix. But other teams, it's a little bit more dependent on other things and maybe, you know, the ball bouncing their way, some things falling in their favor. So nonetheless, we're going to go from left to right. So we're not going to go in any particular order other than the order that these teams are slotted in based off of their schedule or their division, etc. So we'll start with the Buffalo Bills. They're furthest left, and we'll work our way all the way across this grid. Big shout out to Nerding on NFL and at Ozzy NFL on X, man, at Nerding on NFL and at Ozzy NFL, which is where I got this grid from. They do a phenomenal job with this schedule shit, man. They got it on lock. I had no idea who they were before this year. My guy Ed, shout out to my guy Ed. Ed was like, yo, Ozzy is as reliable as it gets when it comes to this schedule shit. And I was like, okay, bet. And ever since then, I've been following Ozzy, nerding on NFL as well. And kind of really Ozzy is where I've been getting most of my information from. But the grid that we had yesterday, I snatched it off of his page and it was a blank grid. And you see they got the color code. I'm gonna have my shit together next year. When we have our special as the information comes out, I'm gonna have my shit together next year. I'm gonna have my shit color coded like this. Yeah, we gonna kill it next year. But this is dope. So it's nice, it's efficient, it's clean, and it's easy to just breeze through this entire thing. So let's look at this grid and knock these schedules out. We start with Buffalo and their schedule. So the first thing I look at always, and I've been doing this for years, you know, I used to always go through the schedule of every team, but I used to do it in a different way back in the day. And the first thing I would always look for is PTPers, primetime games, right? For me, and my definition of primetime is any standalone game. Any game that you're playing when nobody else is playing. There's nothing else nationally across from you. You're the only show in town. Now, I know technically what a primetime game is, but there's been a lot of conversation on social media about primetime games. I leave those for the dum-dums out there, right? For the simple-minded. I care about the NFL feeling good enough about you as a team to put you in a primetime slot, in a slot where you're by yourself. That's important. Buffalo has 1, 2, and that the colors will identify that on this grid, which is great. It makes it easy to figure out where the primetime games are. Minus the black, because everyone has a black because it's the bye week, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 prime timers for the Buffalo Bills. They start the season off on Sunday night, massive showdown against the Baltimore Ravens. They'll be at home for that one. So that's a hell of a way to kick off the season on a Sunday night. Two of the best quarterbacks in football doing battle. Last year's AFC divisional round game was an epic battle between the two teams. And the Bills were victorious in that game. And so the regular season matchup was an ass kicking last year. If you recall, that was an early season. I want to say week 4, maybe. Ravens throttling of the Bills in that ball game, something like 35-10 or something like that. So Bills got their get back. They got their lick back in the postseason. And so those two teams will lock horns once again week 1. That should be a great one. Then they hit the division for 2 straight at the Jets, home for Miami, that Miami game at home on a Thursday. And I know the Dolphins have to be elated because normally the Dolphins get in this same spot against Buffalo, right? Normally are at home. And the Bills usually go there, kick their teeth in, and then they have to go to Buffalo later in the season when it's cold as shit. And we know the Dolphins want no parts of cold weather. So the league did them a favor this time, said, no. We're going to send you to Buffalo early in the season, let you get that shit out of the way, and then you don't have to worry about going there later in the season. So maybe that'll benefit Miami. We'll see. Then New Orleans. Then they are on Sunday Night Football against the Patriots, so we get to see Drake May there. And the beauty of all of these primetime games thus far, the first 3 of them, they got 3 primetimers in the first 5 weeks, so that tells you how they feel about Buffalo, right? All of them are at home. I remember the Bills went for this enormously long stretch of time where the NFL didn't come to Orchard Park. There just wasn't any interest. They weren't very good. And so I remember that first Monday night game they got on, I want to say it was against the Patriots. And that crowd was just electric. They had been waiting for that forever. Now it's a commonplace thing for them to get home games on primetime television. As you can see, all 3 of these are in Buffalo. Then they're at Atlanta on a Monday night. That should be an interesting game. Michael Penix Jr., obviously the signal caller there. Bye week is in week 1, 2. Let's see, week 7. So you come off the bye at Carolina, home for Kansas City. That's going to probably be a 425, America's Game of the Week on CBS. Jim Nantz, Tony Romo, all the bells and whistles there. Should be fun. Every time those two teams do battle in the regular season. And I know for a fact CBS fought like hell for this game. I know they did because the networks want, this type of matchup. Every time they do battle in whether it's the regular season or the postseason, it is must-see TV. So we'll get that in week number 9. Second matchup with the Dolphins in week 10, home for Tampa. At Houston, that's their final prime timer. That's a Thursday night affair, week 12. So that's interesting. That Texans team won the division 2 years in a row. We'll see what happens this year with C.J. Stroud, and they blew that offensive lineup. We'll talk about the Texans a little bit more when we get to them, but interesting stuff there. At Pittsburgh, home for Cincinnati, at New England, at Cleveland, home for Philly. That's a big one late in the season, week 17, and then finish up the season home for the Jets. So nothing about this schedule necessarily stands out other than the fact that they have 4 primetime games in the first 6 weeks. I mean, the NFL says, hey, we're going to give you this Buffalo Bills package and you're going to take it. Pause. You're going to watch the Bills whether you like them or you don't like them. They're getting 4 prime timers in the first 6 weeks. So you're going to get to know the Buffalo Bills very early in this season. And again, because they play the NFC South, there's no real, death portion of the schedule because it's always going to be broken up by a New Orleans or Carolina, right? To a lesser degree, Atlanta or Tampa, those two I think have a chance to be really solid. But New Orleans and Carolina, until they prove otherwise, those are pushovers. They have to prove that they're not right now. So the AFC East is going to have a chance to get their shit off because they play the worst division in the NFC, right? Now, again, we say that now, and New Orleans could surprise us, with one of their quarterbacks. Same could be said for Carolina. Bryce Young could take a third-year leap out of this world, and all of a sudden we're looking at that division totally different, and Michael Penix could turn into a young budding star. But as of right now, that's the worst division in the NFC, is the NFC South. So I expect the AFC East, if they're serious about their business to get their shit off, Buffalo's going to take advantage of that division. I can't speak for the other 3 teams in that division. Go to Miami. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 prime timers with the one game in over in Madrid against the Commanders being an international game. So we'll see how that one goes for them. But that's a lot for Miami. You know what I mean? Like 6 games where there's no other game on is crazy. Like, what did the Dolphins do to require that kind of attention? I don't know. But and some of it too, let's be honest, some of it is attached to the division that they're in. Some of it is attached to you're in the division with Buffalo, so you're probably going to get one against Buffalo. They get one against Buffalo every year, right? Still doesn't change the fact that I don't need to see them against Pittsburgh on national television. I don't need to see that. And we may not see it. We may get to that game and the Dolphins may be ass and they may get flexed out of that game, right? So I don't make a big stink about it, but it's just shocking to see them have 6. And I look at 2, they got more than Buffalo. Technically they got the same amount if you take out the international game, but that's 6 for them, including that international game. That's a bit surprising. Like, I don't need to see them against the Jets. Have no interest on a Monday night watching the Jets and the Dolphins. None. At Indy to start, so you get an opportunity to get a win under your belt, but that's not going to be a pushover because Indy at home is tough, but should be able to go there and win. Then New England. So you got a chance, like theoretically speaking, you got a chance to get off to a 2-0 start if you take care of business. And then all that could come crashing down in week 3 against Buffalo on the road, no less, where you struggle. Then you're home for the Jets. That's a new revamped Jets organization, new head coach Aaron Glenn, new quarterback Justin Fields. We'll see if it's new or if it's the same shit, just a different toilet with the Jets. At Carolina, home for the Chargers, at Cleveland, at Atlanta. So you got a stretch here of 3 out of 5 of these games are on the road. that could be, well, 3 out of 4 really, right? 3 out of 4, 4 out of 6 are on the road here. So if you can navigate this carefully, you're probably going to reap the benefits on the back end with a bunch of home games, but you got to navigate this portion of the schedule. And again, these aren't world beaters we're talking about, right? After Buffalo, it's the Jets, family business. I get it. And that's also on a Monday night. Again, don't need to see that, but okay. At Carolina, should be able to go there and take care of business. But Carolina's got to beat somebody, right? Don't be that team that they find a way to jump up and bite. Home for the Chargers, that should be interesting. At Cleveland, really don't know what the Browns are going to be this year. At Atlanta, that's going to be interesting. Then home for Baltimore on a Thursday night. And again, usually when they see Baltimore, it doesn't go well for them. Normally, it does not go well for them. So we'll see what happens there on a Thursday night in week number 9. Buffalo after that. So this is a really tough stretch going into their bye week in week 12. Home for Baltimore, home for Buffalo, home technically, but you're over in Madrid against the Commanders. 3 teams that were in the postseason, and 2 of which that were in their respective conferences championship game last year. So that is a brutal little 3-game stretch there. And if you haven't taken care of business the previous 8 weeks before it, it could be the final nail in the coffin of their season if they're not careful. So that's a really interesting stretch there. I told you they would reap the benefits of all of those road games. I talked about having that stretch where they got 4 out of 6 on the road, 3 straight at home to recoup all of those road games, right? It always balances itself out. So including one, again, in Madrid that doesn't necessarily count as a home game, but it is. Come off the bye, home for the Saints, at the Jets. So you're done with the Jets at that point. At the Steelers, and that is a Monday night affair. Again, don't need to see that. And maybe they're earmarking that as a game that they can get rid of if need be. I got to imagine there's some much more juicy contests that exist in week 13 week 15 than Dolphins at Steelers, right? But I digress. Then they're home for the Bengals on Sunday Night Football. I got to believe that's getting flexed. By the time we get there, that's going to be flexed. I got to believe. But again, we'll see. Then that closes out their primetime schedule. They are then home for Tampa and finish out at New England. Let's see if the Dolphins can bounce back this season. New England, they should be an interesting team. They have overhauled their entire roster. This feels a lot like what the Commanders did last year, except Drake May is going into year 2 and Jaden Daniels was a rookie last season. But they brought in all new reinforcements. They brought in a recycled head coach, but a guy that is well respected around the league, who immediately got to work and made them a better roster and football team. And he gives them credibility, this Mike Vrabel. And so I don't think the New England Patriots are going to be a pushover this year. I don't. And I think they're way more talented. I mean, the bar was set really low last year. So I think they're going to be a much more talented team this year than they were last year. And so I don't look at them as, oh, yeah, you better sweep them. But if you're serious about winning that division, you better sweep them if you're Buffalo. But I could see them giving Miami and the Jets fits, right, this year. Home for Vegas. So right out of the gates, somebody's getting off the schneid. Not that Vegas is ass, but we don't know what Vegas is going to be. And they were one of the worst teams of football last year. So were the Patriots. Somebody's getting a win in week 1. The league loves to do that. When you see a situation with 2 teams that struggled the year before, hey, we're going to let somebody get their shit off in week 1. Somebody's not going to look up and be 0-4 to start the season this year. See if it's New England. They're at home. They got a good shot. New England won week 1 last year. Let's keep that in mind. Then they proceeded to lose like the next 10 games or whatever. But they won in week 1 at Cincinnati last year. I should know. I got eliminated from my survivor pool because of it. At the Dolphins in week 2. So some family business pretty early on. Home for Pittsburgh. Home for Carolina. So they start out with 3 out of 4 at the crib to start. So again, if you want to get your shit off, they're giving you a chance. And this isn't the toughest schedule in the world, right? Vegas, family business against the Dolphins team that, again, we'll see what they are this year. Tua's healthy, you would presume, at the beginning of the season. So they should be tough then. But, at Pittsburgh or home for Pittsburgh, they don't even have a quarterback right now. I'm still assuming Aaron Rodgers is going to be the guy, but they don't even have a quarterback right now. Mason Rudolph is their signal caller, for God's sake, right now. And then Carolina at the crib. Like, if you can't find a way to win 2 out of these first 4 games, I can't help you. I can't help you. Could be a long season. But again, this could be one of those situations where they start slow, and then as the season progresses, they get better and better and better. Week 5 isn't going to be one of those times where you get better, more likely than not. Now, they played Buffalo tough last year. So I say that they played Buffalo tough last year. At Buffalo in week 5 is a tough assignment on a Sunday night. And if I'm not mistaken, that's going to be Drake May's first primetime game. I don't think the Patriots had a single primetimer last year. They did have a Saturday game against the Chargers. So technically he did have a primetime game last year. But this one's under the lights. This one's a little bit different. He's never been in this predicament, this situation before. So I want to see how he handles that. At New Orleans, at Tennessee. So damn, 3 straight road games. So again, I told you the league always makes you pay when you get this kind of a stretch. 3 out of 4 at home to start. Hey, I'm gonna need that back though, right? They gonna borrow you some money, but they gonna need their shit back with interest though. So just be mindful and wary of, if they loan you 3 games out of 4 at the crib, or in the case of the Dolphins, hey, we gonna cut you a break. We're gonna give you these 4 out of 6. You did us a favor, so we're gonna hook you up a little bit later on down the road, and we're gonna give you 3 straight home games, right? But just know, if they borrow you 3 games out of 4 at home, I'm gonna have to recoup that later, and I need it with interest. 3 straight road games for the Patriots. At Buffalo, ouch. At New Orleans, at Tennessee, you should win 1 of those 3, probably 2 of those 3, if you're serious. If you're serious. It's not a tough stretch. It's on the road. Home for Cleveland, home for Atlanta, at Tampa Bay, home for the Jets on a Thursday night, and at Cincinnati, home for the Giants on a Monday night. Who in the hell decided that was a good idea to put those 2 teams on a Monday night, on primetime period, let alone Monday Night Football? Who decided that was a good idea? I need to see you in my office now. Then the bye week hits in week number. So they got the latest bye that one can have, week 14. Come off that bye. Home for Buffalo, at Baltimore, at the Jets, home for Miami. So they finish up with 3 out of 4 in the division. And you could argue that little mini pocket after the bye week is their toughest stretch of the season. Now, this little 4-game stretch before the bye, home for Atlanta, at Tampa, home for the Jets, at Cincinnati, that could be considered tough. But it's not tougher than home for Buffalo, at Baltimore, at the Jets, home for Miami to finish up. So, again, by the time we get there, those 4 games at the end may be rendered irrelevant. They might be, 4 and 9 by the time they get to week 14 in that bye week. So we'll see, right? I just expect them to be a much improved team. How does that show up in the left and right-hand column? Don't know, but they will be better than they were a season ago. I'll tell you that much. That's the Patriots schedule. 3 prime-timers for the New England Patriots. I think that's off the strength of Drake May. I really do. Just off the strength of a young quarterback. I think he's got a bright future. We want to lay eyes on him. Let's give him a shot. That's what that feels like to me. Jets, they get 3 prime-timers, right? One over in London. So 2 prime-timers and then a standalone game. But that's 3 prime-timers in my book. So see what the Jets have with Justin Fields at the quarterback position and Aaron Glenn as their head coach. Start off the season, and we talked about this when the schedule came out. This was one of the games that we talked about. Home for the Steelers. That's going to be an interesting game because if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Steelers, as I think he ultimately will, then he'll be going back to the scene of the crime. Meanwhile, Justin Fields will get a crack at the team that told him he wasn't good enough, essentially. So That'll be a really interesting week 1 storyline. I think the NFL did that intentionally. Versus Buffalo in week 2, at Tampa Bay, at Miami, the first of their 3 prime timers. That's a Monday night affair. So in the first 4 weeks, 2 to start on at home against Pitt and Buffalo, and then at Tampa Bay, at Miami, home for Dallas, home for Denver. So it gets tough, right? Like after week, well, shit. I mean, Steelers are no pushover again. Just because I don't know what their quarterback situation looks like, but this is a pretty tough first 6 weeks, if you ask me. I mean, of the 6 games, 1, 2, 3. Did the Steelers make the playoffs last year? No, they did not make the playoffs last year. I don't believe they made the playoffs last year. They did not. But they were close to making the playoffs last year. Or did they? I always blank on the Steelers. I'm pretty sure they didn't make the playoffs last year. Let's see. Who were the playoff teams in the AFC last year? You had the Chiefs, you had the Bills, you had the the Texans won their division, and the Ravens won their division. And then your wild cards were Chargers, Broncos, and they had to have made the playoffs. There's no other team. I just went through all the divisions in my head. Nobody else qualifies. And so they had to make the playoffs. So let me think about who they played, because it was quick. It was painless. They got them out of the way pretty quickly. So the Chargers played the Texans. The Bills played the Broncos. So the Ravens must have played the Steelers. Yeah. And I felt like we had just watched that game too. So it was probably non-competitive. Yeah. So playoff team, playoff team, playoff team, playoff team. So 4 out of your first 6 are against playoff teams from a season ago, and we expect Dallas to be improved. So, and same with Miami, assuming Tua's health. So this is a tough stretch. These first 6 games are pretty brutal, right? And then you throw in at Cincinnati, if you want to get go down a little bit further. Really, I think the only game that they may be favored in this entire stretch may be at home versus Carolina in week 7. I mean, they could be underdogs in the first 7 out of 8 weeks of the season. Now, again, we'll see what Steelers quarterback situation. They get Aaron Rodgers, the Steelers are going to be favored in that game more likely than not. Yeah, I don't see them being favored in any other game than the Carolina game. So this is a tough stretch. We'll see how the Jets maneuver that, right? Bye week is week 9. Come off of the bye, and let's see. You get 3 straight at home here from weeks 5 through 7, and you start the season with 2 straight. So the league's going to come calling and look to collect here at some point with a bunch of road games coming your way, because you got 5 out of your first 7 at home. I mean, that is some home cooking. And if you can't take advantage of that, I don't know what to tell you, because you're going to be on the road a ton after this bye week. All right, let's see how it looks, how it shapes up. So after the bye, you're home for Cleveland, and then you're at New England. That is a Thursday night game, your final prime timer of the season. Then you're at Baltimore. You're home for Atlanta. You're home for Miami. You're at Jacksonville. You're at New Orleans. You're home for New England, and you're at Buffalo. So, I mean, if they really didn't come back and collect, honestly, it kind of balances itself out. Yes, you have 3 out of your final 4 on the road, but you still got 2 home games in here, and then you got 2 roadies, but you got 2 home games to balance that out. And then you just finish up with 3 out of 4, and that bye breaks up the bye. The road game. No, well, shit, it was a road game before the bye and a home game after the bye. So they really don't come back and collect, to be honest with you. It feels like this might be one of those years, because you know how now with the 18-game schedule, you know, certain conferences get the extra home game. This might be the year the AFC gets the extra home game. Last year, the NFC got the 9 home games, and the AFC had to take the L and have 8 home games versus 9 road games. This must be the year where the AFC has 9 home games. Let's take a look at somebody's schedule real quick and see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. So they got 9. So that's why it balances out and they don't really come back and bite them, even though it's still crazy to get 3 home games. Now, the reason why, and I just realized it, the Denver one is over in London, so it doesn't really count, right? So that's why they didn't come back and bite them, because like, okay, it's a home game technically, but it's not really a home game. So that's the Jets schedule. Pretty rough start, if you ask me, for the Jets. Pretty rough schedule for the Jets. I really didn't think they would start out that rough, but it could be brutal. It could end up being pretty brutal for them, for sure. All right, on to the AFC North. Ravens. At Buffalo, we talked about that game already, so that's a tough one on the road for Baltimore. They're going to return to the scene of the crime where their season ended a year ago. Home for Cleveland. At home for Detroit on a Monday night. That should be fun. Last time I think they went to Detroit, Justin Tucker had to make a field goal from about 64 or 5. For whatever the NFL record is that Justin Tucker hit, it came in that game, right? When Detroit wasn't very good then. And they had to squeak it out like 18-16 or some shit like that. So that should be fun. Now those two teams are really good. And then at Kansas City and then home for, God damn, Baltimore. Shit. First of all, 1, 2, 3, 4 prime timers for the Ravens, 4 of them. Which is a bit surprising. I thought there would be a bunch more color here for the I thought it would be a lot more color here for the Baltimore Ravens than just 4. I mean, hell, the Dolphins got 6. Like, what are we talking about? What are we doing here, right? Anyway, that also is kind of indicative of what your schedule is. Like, if you don't play a premier, like they are looking, let me see. I could be wrong. Let's see. Nope, that's not the case. They play the NFC North. So there are games there that make sense. I'm shocked that they only have 4 prime timers. But this start to the season, my God, today, look at this. At Buffalo, playoff team that they lost to that went to the AFC Championship. Home for Cleveland, family business. Cleveland got them last year one time. So, you know, nothing's out of bounds. Home for Detroit, team that was the best record-wise in the NFC last year. At Kansas City, the team that took them out, or the team that went to the Super Bowl and represented the AFC. Home for Houston, a team that won their division 2 years in a row. Home for the Rams. Like, I get it. Most of these games are at home. 4 out of 6 to start the season at home. But playoff team, 5 out of 6 are playoff teams. And of those 5 out of 6 that were playoff teams, won the division, won their division, won their division, won their division, won. All 5 of them won their division last year. So, shit, if you're Baltimore. But this is what you're made for, right? If you're the Ravens, you're one of the best regular season teams in the league. This shouldn't be new news to you. You should be used to this. But damn, right out of the gates, you didn't win the Super Bowl. You didn't even go to the Super Bowl. They shouldn't be doing you like this. But at least they're at home. Most of them are at home. Get the bye week in week 7. Come off the bye, home for Chicago, at Miami on a Thursday night, at Minnesota, at Cleveland. So the NFL said, yeah, we gave you those 4 out of 6 at home to start. Hey, I'm going to need that back, bro. 3 straight road games. At Miami, at Minnesota, at Cleveland. I'm going to need that back. Let me get that. And notice when they come back for their shit, it's with interest. Ain't no 3 out of 4 on the road. It ain't no, hey, just give me back what I gave you. Nah, they want their shit with interest. All 3 of them shits is in a row on the road, right? Like, damn, I can't get a little one game to break this shit up. Nope. I need all of that back, and I need it now. Jets at home, Bengals at home, and that game is Thanksgiving, probably Thanksgiving night. if I had to guess. That should be fun. Every time Cincinnati and Baltimore do battle, this shit is must-see TV. It's theater. It's usually high scoring. I'd much rather that than Pittsburgh, Baltimore, where you know it's going to be a rock fight. I'd much rather Cincinnati, Baltimore, because it's usually a slot machine when they play. Shit just spinning. The scoreboard just spinning. Whereas Steelers and Ravens, it's a rock fight. If the first 1 to 20 win that game, I'd rather see 38-35 on Thanksgiving night. After I'm full, I didn't ate my belly to full capacity. I just want to kick. I want to be entertained. Save the 15 to 18 shit for, in December. I'm cool with it then, right? That'll be fun on Thanksgiving night. Home for Pitt. So this schedule is drunk, right? This schedule is absolutely, unequivocally drunk. So you got 4 out of 6 at home to start. You hit your bye. The NFL's like, I need my shit back. I need it now. 3 straight road games. And then after the 3 straight road games, 3 straight home games. The schedule's drunk. And this is the rarity, the 2 out of 3 against the same opponent in your division. They got Cincinnati in week 13 and then turn around and play them again in week 15. So that's interesting there. So 3 straight division games, Cincinnati, Pitt, Cincinnati, 2 of which are at home in a row. So you got to take advantage of that if you're Baltimore. And then home for the Patriots at Green Bay. They could have made this a prime timer here in week 17. I don't know who the Sunday night game is this week. San Francisco at Chicago. Yeah, we're going to flex that shit out of there. And, I mean, maybe those 2 teams are really good, but I would prefer Green Bay and Baltimore, week 17, Sunday night football. And then home for Pittsburgh to finish up the season. That could mean everything. That could mean absolutely nothing. So that's the Ravens schedule. Bengals at Cleveland. So you get an opportunity to get your shit off week 1. Now, they've struggled mightily in Cleveland. Last year was the first time Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, any of those guys had won in Cleveland in their careers. And that was a struggle last year to win that game. It was not pretty, but it was gritty. And most importantly, it was a dub. So while I say they got a chance to get their shit off, they struggle in Cleveland mightily. So no guarantees there. And we know the Bengals are awful to start the season. Usually the first 2 weeks, they sleepwalk before waking up. Last year, they did not wake up until like week 4 or 5. So let's see if they can change their fortunes earlier this season. But my money's on Cleveland. Shit, F that. Jacksonville, week 2 at the crib, at Minnesota, at Denver. So we just stop there. 3 out of 4 to start the season on the road, with the final of those 4 to start at Denver on a Monday night. So going to see some really good defenses too. I mean, Cleveland, Minnesota, and Denver defenses to start your season off when you usually struggle out of the gates as a team collectively. Ouch. Ouch. Then Detroit after that. I mean, and then at Green Bay. Whoa. So this AFC North, the first 2 teams we looked at, really tough schedules to start. So home for Detroit, at Green Bay, home for Pitt on a Thursday night. So that should be a good game. Those are usually entertaining games as well. Then home for the Jets. So 3 out of 4 at home after 3 out of 4 to start on the road. Home for the Bears. So that's 3 in a row, 4 out of 5 at home before the bye. So the league quickly gave them a reprieve after the 3 out of 4 to start on the road. They quickly gave them 4 out of 5 at home to balance out that schedule and put them in a really good position heading into their week 10 bye. They come out of the bye at Pitt, home for the New England Patriots, at Baltimore, and that is Thanksgiving night. We talked about that already. That should be fun. At Buffalo, home for Baltimore. We talked about that 2 out of 3 weeks against Baltimore. That's a little bit of a schedule quirk and anomaly. Home at Miami on a Sunday night. Home for Arizona and home for Cleveland to finish up the season. So that's a little bit of a tough stretch there, that 3-week stretch with Baltimore twice with Buffalo sandwiched in between on the road. That's tough. I mean, this is after the start. The start is rough, right? Only Jacksonville is, they struggle on the road at Cleveland. Jacksonville, they'll be favored in that game. They should be, at least. At Minnesota, probably won't be favored in that game. We'll see what J.J. McCarthy is. I can't say that. All right, we can't assume that they're going to be really good, but we know they're going to be good defensively. At Denver, that's another tough assignment. Home for Detroit, that's another tough assignment. At Green Bay, another tough assignment. Home for Pittsburgh, family business. So this is a tough stretch to start, right? But this is a doable schedule if you're Cincinnati. Once you get past the start, once you get to your bye week, you can breathe a bit. But it's a pretty clean schedule throughout. But that start is rough. If they can navigate that, which they struggle with starting seasons off, if they can navigate that, they got a shot. Cleveland. Cincinnati, we talked about that week one. They always play Cincinnati tough, usually beat them at home. So that's a chance for Cleveland to get their shit off week one. We'll see. At Baltimore, week two. So start the season off with 2 straight divisional games. I think that's the first team that we've looked at of all the schedules that have had 2 straight divisional games to start their season off. So that's a little bit of an interesting thing there. Home for Green Bay, at Detroit, home for Minnesota. That is a London game, so not technically home. And then at Pitt. So what you see here is the league knocking out almost their entire NFC North slate in a 3-week stretch here. They get rid of 3 straight NFC North opponents. Green Bay, Detroit, Minnesota. The only team left is Chicago. At Pitt after, so they don't have the bye. So the NFL gives you an option after you go to an international game to take a bye week then, or you can save it for another time. As you can see, the Jets opted not to take their bye after their trip, and neither did the Browns. So they come back from London, they go on the road to Pittsburgh, home for Miami, at New England, and then they have their bye. So quite a few. Half of their divisional schedule is done prior to their week 9 bye. They would have played every team in the division once by the time they hit their bye, and they would have played 3 out of the 4 NFC North teams as well. Come off the bye, you're at the Jets, home for Baltimore, so now you're done with the Ravens, at the Vegas Raiders, home for San Francisco, home for Tennessee, at Chicago, home for Buffalo, home for Pitt, at Cincinnati. So the back end of this thing is it looks like a last place schedule, right? Like this is very, I mean, San Francisco, I don't expect them to stink this year, but this is a very navigatable schedule. But how good are the Cleveland Browns going to be? We'll see. But they have one primetime game and it's international. So it's a standalone game. I call it primetime anyway. But that's what you're supposed to get when you're the Cleveland Browns. And you don't have a quarterback. You don't have a face. Your best player in your team is a defensive player. Like, we can't put you on TV a ton. And the league said we're not going to. Steelers. Now, they're a different animal because they are a legacy brand. So just off the strength of their name, they don't even have a quarterback, and they got about 1, 2, 3, 4. They got 5 games in primetime. 4 if you take out the international game over in Ireland, but they're the Steelers. They don't even have a quarterback. Mason Rudolph is their signal caller, and they got 5 colored games here, right? That's typical Pittsburgh Steelers shit. At the Jets, we talked about that already, especially if Aaron Rodgers comes back. That could be a significant game. Versus Seattle, so home for Seattle. At New England, home for Minnesota. Obviously, it's over in Ireland. And then they decided to take their bye after that trip to Ireland, the first game over, I believe the first game in the NFL over in Ireland. If I'm not mistaken, their owner, Rooney, was like an ambassador to Ireland or something. That's probably why they actually had the game themselves. Anyhow, so they got a really early week 5 bye. This is a nondescript start to the season. Nothing here really stands out other than the week 1 game if Aaron Rodgers is a part of it. Find a way to navigate that, come out of the bye, and now you got to figure it out. Home for Cleveland, right? They didn't even have a divisional game in those first 4. So, again, nondescript start to the season for The Steelers come off the bye. You get your first divisional game against Cleveland at home. Then you're at Cincinnati on a Thursday night. Then you're home for Green Bay on a Sunday night. Then you're home for Indy. So that now the 3 out of 4 weeks you're on primetime TV, right? NFL, they're shoving you down our throats. Pause. At this point, at Cincinnati, home for Green Bay, home for Indy, at the Chargers in a 4-week stretch. That's tough. Cincinnati will be improved. Green Bay, playoff team last year. And I don't really care for Indy. And at the Chargers, another playoff team from a season ago. So that's a little bit of a tough stretch. And then you throw Cincinnati there again to boot. So, 3 divisional games in that stretch. Good opponents. 3 of them are primetime games. That's a pretty significant stretch of ball for the Steelers in this season. At Chicago, home for Buffalo, at Baltimore, home for Miami. That's a Monday night game. We talked about that already. At Detroit, at Cleveland, home for Baltimore. So it shit gets tight too right here in this 4-week stretch, weeks 13 through 16. This shit gets tight here. Home for Buffalo, at Baltimore, home for Miami on a Monday night, and then at Detroit. That's tough. That's tough. Mike Tomlin's going to have to do his magic. They got to be getting Aaron Rodgers. They have to be getting Aaron Rodgers. There's no way he's going into the season with Mason Rudolph as his starting quarterback. Go to the AFC South. Texans, home for the Rams, week 1. Interesting contest there. Monday Night Football, home for Tampa Bay. Last time those 2 teams met, it was a shootout, and C.J. Stroud and Baker Mayfield put on a show. Mayfield scored a touchdown with about 47 seconds left. Thought he had just won his team the game. Stroud comes back, scores a touchdown with 6 seconds left. It was epic on some 40, I gotta say, 41 to 39 type shit. It was exhilarating stuff. Jacksonville, at home, or excuse me, on the road at Jacksonville, home for Tennessee, at Baltimore. So 2 straight division games, sandwiched in between 3 teams that won their divisions a season ago. So it balances out because your division is ass, and then you play really good teams, and then you get to exhale when you take on. And again, it's family business, so can't say that you're not going to have a test against Jacksonville on the road or Tennessee at home, but you should win those games. Come off you get your bye in week 6, really relatively early bye. Come off of that at Seattle, off the bye on a Monday night. So Houston, 1, 2, 3, 4 prime timers for the Texans. That's right about where they should be, with C.J. Stroud at the helm. Home for San Francisco, home for Denver, home for Jacksonville. So 3 straight home games for the Texans after starting the season off home, away type deal. I think it was away, home, away. They go 3 straight home games. Then at Tennessee. So you're done with Tennessee and you're done with Jacksonville in consecutive weeks, in weeks 10 and 11. Home for Buffalo on a Thursday night. That should be fun. At Indy in week 13. At Kansas City in week 14 on a Sunday night. So you're returning to the scene of the crime where your season ended a year ago. That should be a fun game as well, assuming that those 2 teams are good. Home for Arizona, home for the Raiders, at the Chargers, home for Indy. This is a stretch at the end of the season that if you're teetering on winning your division or, vying for the number 1 or 2 seed, this is the stretch that should get you over the top. Home for Arizona, home for the Raiders, at the Chargers, home for Indy. You should clean that up and find yourself in a position to go 3-peat in the AFC South, right? If you take care of business throughout the first portion of this schedule. It sets up nicely, but I will say that home for Buffalo and at Kansas City sandwich in between with a trip to Indy, that's a tough stretch for them. That's a tough stretch. Let's get to the Indianapolis Colts. Who the hell is going to be their starting quarterback? My money's on Anthony Richardson winning that job, but if he's not consistent throughout camp, Daniel Jones to the rescue, I guess. Start the season off home for Miami. Again, I talked about Miami having a chance to get their shit off week 1. Same can be said for Indy. You're at home. Dolphins are not a powerhouse. If you're serious about challenging Houston for the division, how about you get off to a 1-0 start? Home for Denver, at Tennessee, at the Rams, home for the Raiders, home for the Cardinals, at the Chargers, home for Tennessee, at Pittsburgh, and then you're in Germany against the Falcons before your bye week in week 11. So kind of looking at this from a long view, 2 home, 2 away. And in those first 4 games, 1 opponent in the division, 2 teams that were playoff teams a year ago. Then you come out of that first 4-game stretch. You go 2 home again. So you go 3 out of 4 at home. Really 4 out of 5, 4 out of 6 at home. But this Berlin game doesn't really count. But this is, this to me, like, this is a schedule that allows you to get your shit off early. It really does. I mean, Tennessee, Vegas, Arizona, Tennessee again, Atlanta, and again, we don't know what the Falcons are going to be, but these are all winnable games. Like, the Texans got a lot of that shit pushed back to the back end of the schedule where I said, hey, you got to get your shit off at the end. You're getting a chance to get your shit off early. Take advantage of it. Come off the bye in week 11 at Kansas City, home for Houston, at Jacksonville, at Seattle, home for San Francisco on really their lone primetime. Well, they got 2 primetimers, including the Berlin game, but the lone night timer, that's a Monday nighter against San Francisco, and then home for Jacksonville and at Houston. So 2 primetimers, 1 at night. And I'll tell you that their toughest stretch of ball is right after their bye, right? At Kansas City, playoff team last year that won the division. Houston, home, won the division last year. At Jacksonville, at Seattle, that's a tough out. Home for San Francisco, I expect them to be improved. That's probably the toughest stretch of ball that they have the entire schedule. And if that's the toughest stretch you have, you're in pretty good shape. But got to figure out who your quarterback is, got to find a way to play consistent offense, play the kind of defense that we know they're capable of, and find a way to win games. Jacksonville, who knows? That week 17, that week 18 game at Houston could be for the division. Who knows? Just like it was 2 years ago. Jacksonville, looking for a bounce back year. New head. We got to talk about the Colts schedule video. That we got to do that another time. We got a lot of shit we got to talk about that we don't have time to talk about today. But Jacksonville, home for Carolina, at Cincinnati, at Houston, home for Carolina. That's a chance for you to get your shit off week 1. They're giving you an opportunity to say, hey, start 1-0. Liam Cohen, get your first victory of your head coaching career, build some momentum. They're giving you a chance to get your shit off. At Cincinnati, home for Houston, at San Francisco, home for Kansas City on a Monday night. So you got 2 primetimers. That's about right. They don't need to be on primetime. And really, the one primetime they got carried by Kansas City. Right? Kansas City is like, yo, come on. I got you. Don't worry about it. Nah, I got you. This one's on me. Come on. You can come with me. They latching on to Mahomes' star here. And that's what you got to do sometimes, right? You got a team that nobody wants to watch. Attach them to a star, right? Now you got star power. Now we got a reason to watch. This is a tough start, though. While they got a chance to get their shit off week 1, then you're at Cincinnati, team that won the division last year in Houston, coming to your place. At San Francisco, I expect them to be improved. Home for Kansas City, you know what that is. Home for Seattle, not going to be a pushover. And home for the Rams, and that's over in London, so it's not technically a home game. Ouch. Like, that's tough. I'm not going to hold you. Come off that bye week in week 8, at Vegas, at Houston, home for the Chargers, at Arizona, at Tennessee. So it eases up a bit, even though these are a ton of road games here we're talking about. 3 out of 4 on the road. But it eases up a little bit. You feel a little bit more comfortable about some of these opponents. Home for Indy, home for the Jets, at Denver, at Indy, home for Tennessee to finish up. So after a bit of a ragged start, right? A rough start. After a bit of a ragged start, I think it eases up and gives you a chance to compete. Just a bunch of road games, especially after the bye. You got 4 out of 5 on the road. But if you can navigate it cleanly, you got a shot to compete at a high level. This division's like Houston, with them blowing up their offensive line, they're an anomaly. Not anomaly. They're a enigma. Like, we don't know what the Texans are going to be. We still expect them to be the best team in that division, but just a season ago, we expected you to be competing with them for a division crown. I mean, you just fell off of a damn cliff last year. Remember, the Jags 2 years ago were leading that division. They had come off of a playoff win in 2023 or 2022, excuse me. Came off of a division win, a playoff win, and then they were like 9-7-3 or something, 8-3 or 8-4, and then they collapsed that year. So they're not that far removed from being very relevant in that division. Let's see if they can get their shit together with Liam Cohen coming in as the new head coach. Tennessee at Denver. We talked about we haven't talked about that. That's fun for Denver. This is a great test week 1 for Cam Ward out of the gate at Denver. Ouch. Ouchie. Yikes. If that kid can navigate that defense and keep him in the game. Respect. I don't expect him to take them there to win, but just compete. Keep him in, don't vomit all over yourself against that Broncos defense. Home for the Rams. Home for Indy, at Houston, at Arizona, at Vegas, home for the Patriots, at Indy, home for the Chargers. So this is a very nondescript, this is a last place schedule start to the season. Now, I don't think they're going to be able to take advantage of it, but 3 straight home games at Houston, 3 straight road games at Houston, at Arizona, at Vegas. 4 out of 5 on the road. When you throw in home for New England and then at Indy, ton of division games to start, including home for Indy week 3, at Houston week 4, at Indy. So you're done with Indy before your bye week. In week 10, you're done with Indy in week 8. So 3 division games within the first 8 weeks of the season for the Titans. But it's a doable start. None of this screams, oh my God, I pray for Tennessee other than week 1. And that's more so pray for Cam Ward. Going to the bye in week 10, you come out of it, home for Houston, home for Seattle, home for Jacksonville. So 3 straight home games after the bye, 2 of which are in the division. So 2 out of 3 in the division, 3 straight home games. At Cleveland, at San Francisco, home for the Chiefs, home for the Saints, at the Jacksonville Jaguars to finish up. I mean, again, if Tennessee wanted to try and do something, they could try and do something. I don't know what it's going to take to win that division, but what's stopping them from being Houston 3 seasons ago when CJ Stroud was a rookie? Right. Or 2 seasons ago now. I don't know. A lot, probably. But the schedule says, hey, you got a shot. And in a division like that, why not? We'll see. AFC West, Denver. We just talked about them hosting Tennessee week 1. Hey, ease up on the kid, man. Don't hurt him. All right. Don't 3 interception him in week 1. Don't sack him, 6 times. Ease up on the kid. All right. At Indy week 2, at the Chargers week 3, home for Cincinnati week 4. That is a Monday night game. So just so we are clear, the Titans have 0 primetime games. None. No exposure whatsoever. Ouch. But that's to be expected. First of all, the AFC South is the worst watch in football, which is why they're always the first game of the playoffs at 4:30 on Saturday. So that's number 1. Number 2, the Tennessee Titans are one of the worst watches of all teams in the league. That's number 2. And then number 3, they had the number 1 pick last year. They stink. So this is to be expected here. None for you. Denver has 1, 2, 3, 4 prime timers this year. The first of which is home for Cincinnati on a Monday night. We talked about that game already. That should be a fun one there. Burrow against that defense. We saw what that was on a Saturday night last year. Fireworks, overtime, all of that good jazz. That was fun. We're getting part 2 on a Monday night in week 4. At Philadelphia, at the Jets. So let's stop right there for a second. 4 out of 5 here on the road from weeks 2 through 6. Indy and the Chargers. Well, Indy's not a playoff team. Chargers were a playoff team. We think Cincinnati's going to be really good, or at least I do. I can't speak for you. Philly won the Super Bowl, and the Jets are revamped. It could be a tough stretch, or it could not be. But what is consistent throughout this thing is that you're getting solid defensive teams. Indy's a solid defensive team. Chargers a solid defensive team. Cincinnati, not the one team that isn't. Philadelphia was the best in the league last year, and the Jets are usually one of the better teams on defense as well. So we'll see what Bo Nix does in that stretch. Come out of that stretch because you have a trip over to London there in week 6, and you play the Giants at home, and then Dallas at home, and then at Houston. So a couple of NFC East teams. Then you're at Houston, home for the Raiders on a Thursday night. So a little bit of AFC West family business. Home for Kansas City afterwards, and then you hit your bye week in week 12. Come off that bye, and you go to Washington for a Sunday night football showdown with Jaden Daniels and the Commanders. Then you have another road game at Vegas, home for Green Bay, home for Jacksonville, at Kansas City, and this is a Christmas night affair, and then you wrap up your season home for the Chargers. So this little stretch of 4 out of 5 on the road with some good defensive teams, that's interesting. Dallas and the Giants back-to-back weeks at home, see what that looks like. Then 2 straight divisional games, both at home before your bye week. Interesting. Come off the bye, you're at Washington on a Sunday night. Yeah, I mean, it's spread out. Everything's spread out. This feels like a very doable schedule for the Denver Broncos. Now we'll see what Bo Nix has in his arsenal for an encore. Chiefs, we already know what they're about. 8 of these things, right? Let's look at all the color here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them things. 8 prime timers for the Kansas City. Yeah, City Chiefs. We know what they're about, man. When you got the face of the league in Patrick Mahomes, this is what happens, right? You get 8 of these things, an 8-piece. So at the Chargers over in Brazil on a Friday night to kick off the season as the second game, and the second year in a row they've done the Friday Brazil game. You then come back week 2 home for the Eagles, rematch of the Super Bowl, obviously. So that is a very enticing game there. At the Giants on a Sunday night, once one of those, hey, we call these a drag along game, right? Nobody wants to see the Giants in prime time, right? But the Giants are blue blood, so they get these kind of games. But you got to attach them. You have to attach them to someone that makes them palatable. We saw that earlier with who was it that I was talking about, where I said they attached them to I can't remember who it was we were talking about, but that is the definition of attaching a team to someone, because we don't have any interest in seeing the Giants, right? None whatsoever. But you attach them to Patrick Mahomes and you got us, right? Then you go Baltimore at home, at Jacksonville, home for Detroit. So at Jacksonville on a Monday night, home for Detroit on a Sunday night. So we got 3 out of 4, 4 out of 6, similar to Buffalo, 4 out of 6 in the first 6 weeks, prime timers for the Kansas City Chiefs. And these are all juicy. I mean, this is a brutal start to the season, to be honest. But they're used to this. This is not new for them, right? You know, Chargers playoff team, they always struggle with them. Eagles, obviously, we know the struggle they had with them last year. Giants should be a game that they should be able to get, but we'll see what happens. Baltimore, we already know the wars that those two teams have. At Jacksonville on a Monday night, a home for Detroit on a Sunday night. So, and Detroit beat them the last time that they came to Arrowhead to kick off the season back in 2023, I believe it was. So we've seen like this is tough. Who are we kidding? Those first 6 weeks are tough, but they know how to navigate tough. They know how to navigate tough terrain. Home for Vegas, home for Washington on a Monday night. That's going to be fun. Oh, the two faces of the league, or at least the way the league is trying to set it up, right? Pushing Jaden Daniels and the Commanders to the front and center. You're looking at a marquee matchup on a Monday night. And that is the 5th prime timer. And we haven't even gotten past 8 weeks of football for the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, that's what happens when you have the best player in the league on your team. And then at Buffalo. So this shit is brutal, man. Before they're bye in week 10, playoff team Buffalo, playoff team Washington, playoff team Detroit, playoff team Baltimore, playoff team Philly, Super Bowl champion Philly, playoff team Chargers. Six of their 8 of their 7 of their 9 contests before their bye week are against playoff teams. That's how you do it, though. That's how you do it. That's a fun schedule right there. Hit the bye week, week 10, come off of it at Denver, home for Indy. And they got to stretch here 3 straight home games, right? Home for Detroit on a Sunday night, home for Vegas, home for Washington on a Monday night. So they get a little bit of home cooking there as well. Come off the bye at Denver, home for Indy, at Dallas on Thanksgiving. That's going to do numbers. When I talk about numbers between the Commanders game in week 8 on Monday night, I think the Cowboys game on Thanksgiving might be the highest rated game of the season. We'll see. I'm putting my money on those 2 games being some of, and again, what the records are going into those games might alter how viewed they are. But Cowboys and Chiefs, man, that's gonna be crazy on Thanksgiving. Home for Texans on Sunday Night Football the following week, their 7th prime timer of the season. Home for the Chargers at Tennessee, home for Denver on Christmas, their 8th and final prime timer, and then at the Vegas Raiders. That is a hell of a schedule. But if anybody, and I mean anybody, can navigate it, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. So, Raiders at New England, week 1. Again, we talked about this with New England. Chance to get your shit off. Like, somebody's going to get a win in week 1. They didn't get one last year. Well, New England got one last year, but I don't think the Raiders won in week 1 last year. I don't think. I'm not sure. I know Gardner Minshew led them to an upset of Baltimore in like week 2 or 3, but I don't think they won in week 1 last year. Home for the Chargers. So let's count them up. 1, 2, 3. So that's a good number for the Raiders. A 3-piece of prime timers. That's good for them. At the Chargers, or home for the Chargers, on a Monday night in week 2. Okay. At Washington, week 3. Home for the Bears, week 4. At Indy, week 5. Home for the Titans, week 6. At Kansas City, week 7, before you have a bye in week 8. So they've got the traditional away, home, away, home, away, home, away schedule. And it looks like it does that the entire way. I remember the Commanders had a schedule very similar to this, where they only had back-to-back away and home games once the entire season. And that's the same thing the Raiders have here. Home for Jacksonville, at Denver, Thursday night primetime game. So that'll be an interesting one, interdivisional game there on primetime. So 2 of the 3 Raiders primetime appearances are against divisional foes. Home for Denver on a Monday, home for Dallas on a Monday night. Interesting. Home for Cleveland. So again, home, away, home, home. So 2 home games straight with Cleveland here. At the Chargers, home for Denver, at Philadelphia, at Houston, home for the Giants, home for Kansas City. So everything's kind of spread out, right? I think their toughest stretch of ball is right here, weeks 13 through 16. Chargers, playoff team from last year. Denver, playoff team from last year. Eagles, Super Bowl champions from last year. Texans, playoff team from last year. So that's their toughest stretch of ball. But honestly speaking, it's a navigatable schedule if Geno Smith and Ashton Genty can come in there and give them a spark, and defensively they can get what they need out of that team. That's a doable schedule. Chargers, to wrap up the AFC side of the bracket. Home for the Chiefs. Obviously over in Brazil to kick off the season, the second game of the season on a Friday. At the Raiders on Monday Night Football, we just talked about that game. So 2 straight primetimers. How many do they have altogether? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 for Justin Herbert, who's on the outskirts of, the top 5 as one of them ones. He doesn't win enough in clutch situations. It's hard to put him talent-wise. He's definitely in that discussion, but he just doesn't get it done, right? But this is what you get when you have a guy with the talent of a Justin Herbert. And also, when you play in a division with the Chiefs, that helps too. But they only have 1 game against the Chiefs in primetime. So, home for Denver. So, their first 3 games are divisional games. Shit. That's the first team we've run into with a schedule like that. So, right out of the gate, you got a chance to establish yourself as the Don Dadas of the AFC West. You can come out of this first stretch 3-0. Oh shit, look at that. You've beat every team in the division once, right? Now, it's a gift and a curse because 2 out of those 3 games are at home. So you're gonna have to go later in the season and get your shit out the mud on the road. But they're capable. They're capable. At the Giants, home for Washington, at Miami, home for the Colts, home for Minnesota. That's a Thursday night affair. Interesting. At Tennessee, home for Pittsburgh. That's a Sunday night affair. At Jacksonville before their Week 12 bye. So when you look at the games before the bye, home, away, home, away, home, away, home, home, away, home, away. So they're not playing a lot of consecutive games at the Crizzo. This is spread out pretty good outside of the start where it's just 3 straight divisional games out of the gates. This is a doable schedule, right? 2 NFC East teams, a couple of AFC opponents and non-playoff AFC opponents from a season ago. Vikings on prime time at home, Titans, Steelers, Jags. Like that's a doable schedule for the Chargers to start before the bye. Come out of the bye, home for the Chargers, Week 13. Home for Philly on a Monday night. That'll be a big one. At Kansas City, at Dallas, home for Houston, at Denver. So this finish to the season, these final 5 weeks, it's brutal. That's a tough, like if they need it down the stretch, ouch, right? And then 3 out of 5 of them are on the road, no less. And the one against Philly doesn't matter that you're home. They're coming in there and they're taking over your stadium, right? It doesn't matter that you're home in that game. They're going to come in there and take over and make it feel like the Lynx. So that's basically a road game already. This is rough. Like if you come in, like generally the Chargers are one of those teams that need it down the stretch. They don't start the season 10-1, right? They're like 7-3. They're 8-6 heading into the final stretch of the season. They come into this final stretch, these final 5 games. So if they come into that stretch like 7-6, or see where we at. What week is it? 14. So it'd be 12 games they would have played. They come into this shit 7-5, 6-6. They're in trouble. This is if they come into this like 8-4, then they got a shot to survive this. Win 2 of them, get to 10-7, let the chips fall where they may. But this right here, if you come into this stretch at 6-6, and then you gotta win on the road at Philly because they're gonna turn that shit into a road game. You gotta win at home, air quotes, at home against Philly on a Monday night. At Kansas City, it's never easy, but you're capable. But it's at Kansas City. Rarely do you go in there and win. You used to win early in Justin Herbert's career, but I think it's been 2 or 3 years now since you've won on the road at Kansas City. Then you're at Dallas. You can go in there and win, but who knows what the Cowboys will be in Week 16. It's still going to be tough if Dak Prescott's healthy. Home for the Texans. We know what happened the last time you saw those boys. It didn't end well for you. And then you're at Denver, and who knows? Denver last year needed the Week 18 game. They might need it again. You might need it. That could be for a playoff spot in Week 18, for all we know, right? So this is a doable schedule, and then you come off the bye, like the first 11 weeks. I'm like, okay, yeah, all right. Got to get your shit off the first 3 weeks because it's all division games. Like, if you're serious, you got to find a way to start off quick. But the rest of that shit it's doable. You come off the bye, and I'm like, whoa, those final 5 games of the season, tough. So that's the AFC. I think I'm going to stop here because I'm looking at the time and I'm seeing where we are. And what we'll do is we'll come back tomorrow and we'll do the NFC side of the bracket and look at all of the schedules for all the teams, because I want to make sure I dedicate the adequate amount of time, just like I did with these AFC teams, to the NFC teams. And looking at the time, I'm not going to be able to do that if I try and get through it. So I don't want to start something I can't finish. So we'll come back tomorrow and we will get after the NFC side of the schedule and talk about what it looks like for all of these teams. What I can tell you right now, there's an awful lot of color in this first, really in this NFC side. Way more color on this side than there is on the AFC side. And there's a lot of color in these first 2 divisions. My goodness, there's a lot of color. Not so much in the NFC South. A lot of white and gray here, right? Not a lot of color in this division, but a ton of it in the NFC North and the NFC East for sure. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on this particular installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I guess I actually got an opportunity now to talk about the Colts video that they put out. Did you see the schedule release video for the Indianapolis Colts? That was wild. That was wild. It was a Minecraft video that they had to take down. And they put out a statement that, and I'm going to read you the statement that they issued. They issued a statement as to why they took the video down. And I'm gonna find you that statement. So here it is. My guy Ari had put this out earlier this morning. Ari had wrote this on his X account. He said the Colts had to delete their video, and this is what they wrote on their Twitter page, on their X page. Quote, "We removed our schedule release video because it exceeded our rights with Microsoft and included an insensitive clip involving Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill. We sincerely apologize to Microsoft and Tyreek," the team said in a close quote after Tyreek. Close quote. That's what the team said in a statement on their X account this morning. So it was hilarious, to say the least. It featured a lot of crazy shit, including Tyreek Hill, a dolphin with Tyreek Hill over his head, right? So they were insinuating that the dolphin was Tyreek Hill in the water, and the Coast Guard like trying to arrest it, right? So that's crazy because Tyreek Hill got arrested last year. They were trying to be funny, which it was funny, but it's not funny. But it is. But it's not. But it is. All right. So then the Steelers were doing they were, hammering away in the mines, and they turned on like this faucet of gunk to fill up the mines while the Steelers were down there hammering. I'm like, oh wow. They had the Titans. They had a party bus with girls on it. One of them vomited. The party bus ran over Will Levis, who was standing in the street. It was crazy. They had one with Kirk when they were playing over in London. They spray painted the wall with Indianapolis Colt horseshoe. They turn around and they look, and Kirk Cousins is standing there with his chains on and no shirt. And then Michael Penix Jr. shows up, and Kirk drops his head like, oh shit, I'm not starting. It's hilarious. You got to watch it. It's still circulating out there, even though it's been pulled down. And we're going to talk tomorrow about. So we're gonna go over the NFC side of the schedule, and then tomorrow, we're gonna talk about that Caleb Williams article that came out. Seth Wickersham of ESPN put out an explosive article where Caleb Williams basically, and his dad especially, were angling to not be drafted by the Bears. Remember, we heard a report come out prior to the draft that Caleb Williams and his team did not want to be drafted by the Bears and that they were going to do everything in their power to not be drafted by the Bears. And then Williams came out and said it wasn't true. It was true, all right. And we're going to talk about that article. It was interesting, to say the least. It is a great read. Do yourself a favor. If you haven't checked it out, please do so. There's some crazy quotes in there. And look, if I'm Caleb Williams, I feel some type of way about this coming out now. We'll talk more about it tomorrow, because like the Bears fans are riding hard for this kid, but clearly he did not want them. But we'll talk about that tomorrow. So with that said, I hope to see you guys later on this evening for the Commanders, the Command Post Live. We are going to deep dive into the Commanders' schedule, talk about some of the scheduling quirks, talk about some of the things regarding that schedule, including the Commanders being favored in 12 of the 17 matchups. I can't tell you the last time the Commanders were favored in 5 games, let alone 12 in a season. So again, we already know what this is. We know what we're viewed as and how we are looked upon going into the season. I love it. And we're going to talk more about that tonight, among other things. So hopefully you'll be able to join me for that. If not, hopefully I'll see you tomorrow when we go over the NFC side of the bracket and all of the schedules in the NFC and talk about quirks, different things, primetime games, etc. And so we'll do that tomorrow on the pod. Until then, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. Do me a favor, hit the like button if you haven't already done so. That helps this channel grow exponentially. And subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content if you have not already done so. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Until next time, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. God bless. Good night.